We welcome everyone joining us today from around the world for the 6th webinar in our Multiverse Webinar series. Today's webinar is on the Multiverse Receiver Card. I'm Harrison Hohnholt of City Theatrical, and I'll be your presenter today. Let's take a look at our full webinar series to give you an idea of what we've been reviewing and what you can learn. Our webinars are brief, 20 to 30 minutes, but filled with both general information about wireless DMX and specific information about our individual products. Our first webinar was an introduction to the 11 breakthrough technologies that make Multiverse different than any other wireless DMX in the world. In our second webinar on Multiverse Show Baby, besides describing setting up a basic point-to-point broadcast system, we discussed the radio technology that we use, frequency hopping spread spectrum. We also introduced the concept of show IDs, described best practices for wireless DMX, and gave an introduction to RDM and City Theatrical's DMX Cat. In our third webinar on Multiverse Node, we taught how to set up a simple point-to-point broadcast system. In addition, we described the use of the 900 MHz band and working with specialized antennas for situations where the default omnidirectional antenna is not the best choice. We also described how to designate the multiverse node to be a receiver on a specific universe of a multi-universe broadcast. And we again explored the use of RDM and DMX Cat in setting up the system. I hope you have a chance to view all of those recorded webinars, since they serve as the foundation and background to all wireless DMX knowledge. In our fourth webinar, we learned about the multiverse transmitter, which contains 4 different radios and which can broadcast as many as 10 universes from one transmitter. In that webinar, we set up a complex 9-universe broadcast with 18 multiverse node receivers. Our fifth webinar concentrated on wireless dimming with our ColorFlex 5 by 2.5 amp 900 MHz 2.4 GHz multiverse dimmer and our ColorFlex 2 by 2.5 amp 2.4 GHz multiverse dimmer. These are small, full-featured dimmers for scenery, props, and costumes. In this webinar, we showed you how to set up and control LED tape wirelessly. Today, in our sixth webinar, we'll show you our Multiverse Receiver Card, which allows anyone, whether they are an electrician, prop builder, tinkerer, or inventor, to easily and quickly implement a tiny multiverse receiver into any DMX device. These receiver cards are even used by manufacturers who don't have high volumes or don't want to spend the engineering time to do a full multiverse module implementation. If you happen to miss any of these webinars, they will live on as recordings on the multiverse pages of our website, www.citytheatrical.com/multiverse, and as YouTube videos. If you are new to wireless DMX or want to reinforce your fundamentals, you can find lots of helpful information on the Downloads tab of all the multiverse pages of our website, including manuals, quick start guides, case studies, and white papers. You may want to start with our white papers, What You Need to Know About Wireless DMX, and How Advances in Wireless DMX Will Change the Way We Do Lighting. These 2 white papers will give you a good baseline understanding of wireless DMX technology. If you have any questions today, please type them into the Q&A box at the top of your screen. You may need to click the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen to open that Q&A box. Be sure to address your questions to all panelists, which enables me to see them. Now it is time for our swag giveaway. One listener will earn a new City Theatrical t-shirt just for signing up for the webinar today. We'll reach into the fishbowl and pick out a name, and it is Jason Tomaszewski. Congratulations, Jason. We will contact you by email and make the arrangements to get you your shirt. We have a lot to get through today, so let's get started. This is the growing family of Multiverse Wireless DMX RDM products. Today we are going to be looking at our Multiverse Receiver Card. You may have seen or heard of our Multiverse modules. That's the tiny device on the far left of your screen, which manufacturers use to allow them to put multiverse wireless control into their products. Implementation of the multiverse module requires a high level of electrical engineering knowledge, but we wanted a larger group of users to have access to the multiverse technology in circuit board form. So we created the Multiverse Receiver Card, which does all the layout, assembly, and programming work for you. Multiverse receiver cards are full multiverse receivers without the housing, XLR connectors, and user interface as used in wireless DMX receiving products like Multiverse Node and Multiverse Showbaby. Multiverse receiver cards include an internal antenna and a UFL connection to an optional external antenna. Initial configuration is done via City Theatrical's USB configuration program for PC and Mac. This product is designed and built by City Theatrical in our factory in Carlstadt, New Jersey. We have two products in the product line. Part number 5906 Multiverse Receiver Card, 2.4 GHz, which is usable worldwide, and part number 5907 Multiverse Receiver Card, 900 MHz, which is usable only in North America. For today's webinar, I'll be setting up the 2.4 GHz version, the 5906. The setup and operation of the 5907 is nearly identical, except that the 5907 uses multiverse show IDs only, while the 5906 can use both multiverse and show DMX Neo show IDs. That means that the 5906 can use show DMX Neo transceivers, including Showbaby, Showbaby 5, and Showbaby 6, set on show DMX Neo show IDs to broadcast to the multiverse receiver card. Here are some of its features. It has a DMX RS485 driver on board with 60-volt protection. It has signal quality LEDs on board and external connections. It has a show ID RGB LED on board and external connections. It has a multiverse band LED on board and external connections. It has a wide input voltage range from 5 volts to 30 volts DC. It has a small footprint, 50 millimeters by 38 millimeters, or 2 inches by 1.5 inches. It has a 3.3 volt DC output to power low current hosts. It's configurable with the free City Theatrical USB configurator program. Its firmware is updatable over the USB Micro B connector, and its advanced mode features include 0 to 10 volt output and 4 PWM control outputs. We'll look at the basic mode setup first, which is wireless DMX reception and wired DMX output. In its simplest form, the receiver card receives wireless DMX and RDM and outputs DMX and RDM as a differential pair on pins 11 through 13 of the interface connectors. Let's take a look at the connections we need to make and how to do it. In this view of the circuit board, you can see the 20-pin 2x10 0.1-inch centers footprint. We'll make solder connections directly to this footprint today, but you may also choose to mount a header to this footprint that would allow you to use a ribbon cable to make connections. Let's zoom in on this top view of our circuit board and examine the connections that we'll make today. Here's a close-up of the top side of the circuit board, showing a 20-pin footprint. Note that pin 1 has a square outline and is on the upper right end of the array. The incoming power connection goes on pins 17 and 18. Solder the positive of your 5 to 30 volt DC power to pin 18 and the negative to pin 17. Those connections bring power to the receiver card. Next, we'll make the 3 DMX output connections. DMX common goes on pin 11, DMX data minus goes on pin 12, and DMX data plus goes on pin 13. That's all it takes to make your mechanical connections to the circuit board for DMX output. Depending on your needs, you will mount wires and connectors to suit your application. Here are 2 examples. On the left is a 5-pin female XLR for DMX out and a quick connector for DC power in. On the right is a 5-position terminal block with our 3 DMX wires attached to plug into a City Theatrical 5809 dimmer's DMX in connection. The DC power connection has bare ends to attach to the 5809's DC power input, along with the power supply that is powering the dimmer. Later in this webinar, we'll be using that setup. Now that I've made the mechanical connections, let's look at how we make our radio settings. Initial settings are made with the City Theatrical USB configurator program, because some of the advanced settings can only be made that way. After that, radio settings can be made or changed with RDM through a multiverse transmitter, multiverse node, or multiverse showbaby, or with the USB configurator program. Again, All settings, including the advanced settings, can be changed via the USB connection. RDM settings are only appropriate to what an end user will need to adjust. It is also possible to select and change a limited number of show IDs directly on the receiver card itself. We'll look at all three of these methods one by one. Configuration with the USB configurator program doesn't require an external power connection. We'll explore that method first. You can download the USB configurator program from the 5906 page of the City Theatrical website. Using the USB configurator program, you can easily set the show ID option, optional show key, output power, and make the selection of an external antenna if you are using one. The USB configurator program also automatically loads the 5906's user manual, so you have it in front of you while you are configuring. To configure using RDM, such as with a City Theatrical DMX CAT, a City Theatrical Multiverse or Show DMX Neo transmitter can be used to broadcast to your Multiverse Receiver Card. An RDM configuration is performed through the transmitter with the Multiverse Receiver Card as a connected wireless device. For the 900 MHz 5907 receiver card, only a multiverse transmitting device can be used since it only utilizes multiverse show IDs. If my receiver card is brand new, it will be set on the default settings. But if it isn't, factory defaults may be manually reset by holding the show ID selector switch for 5 seconds. The 4 signal quality lights will flash in unison to show the completion of the reset. Once both devices have the same settings, we are in communication. And if needed, you can change the receiver card's show ID, universe, and show key. Be sure to make the changes on the receiver card first. You'll lose communication with the transmitter each time you change one of these 3 settings. Then regain it when you make the change in the transmitter. Go back and forth until all needed changes are made. Here are the images from my DMX CAT. The screens are nearly identical whether RDM or the USB configurator program are used to set the basic radio settings. It is also possible to select and change a limited number of show IDs directly on the receiver card itself. Since the 5906 can receive in either 2.4 GHz Show DMX Neo mode or 2.4 GHz Multiverse mode, the band indicator light is green when a Multiverse show ID has been selected, and is yellow when a Show DMX show ID has been selected. Pressing the Show ID selector switch button will first cycle through 6 Multiverse show IDs. The band indicator light will be green, and the show ID status will cycle through the 6 ID colors. If you continue pressing the Show ID selector switch, the band indicator light will change to yellow, and you'll begin to cycle through the 6 Show DMX Neo show IDs. This chart shows the 6 Multiverse show IDs and the 6 Show DMX Neo show IDs that can be selected by pressing the Show ID selector switch manually. They allow you to choose 6 different broadcast strategies per band. They are adaptive hopping, full bandwidth hopping, low band hopping, mid band hopping, high band hopping, or max band hopping. You can see on the left-hand column of the chart that the Show ID status indicator light has a different color for each of those show IDs, and that if a show ID is set via RDM or the USB configurator program, the show ID light will be blue. We've talked about the various ways of setting up the mechanical connections and changing the radio settings. And now it's time to set up a transmitter to test our system. I'll use a multiverse node today. For my settings, I'll use a multiverse show ID 24140, and I'll set a show key of 123. It's a single universe system, so I'll keep the universe selection on 1. I'll make these settings through RDM through my multiverse node. My end target device will be a City Theatrical part number 5809 ColorFlex dimmer with some 5-in-1 LED tape attached to it. I'll use my receiver card to make this a wireless dimmer. I've attached the 3 DMX connections from my receiver card to the DMX terminal block input of the dimmer. There was no need to solder on a 5-pin XLR in this case. And I got my power from my receiver card from the same 24-volt source that is powering the dimmer. And I did that by attaching the receiver card's 2 power input wires to the power input terminals of the dimmer. along with the 2 power wires from an external 24-volt DC power supply. One of the strengths of Multiverse is that we have excellent wireless RDM, and it is easy to check your signal quality of your receiver. We do this when we set up, and we can do it daily after that, or as often as we want. It lets us know the health of our system and that all receivers are working properly. If your signal quality is in the green zone, you're in good shape. As you saw, there are only 5 wires to attach to the receiver card to get DMX control in basic mode, 3 for DMX and 2 for power, and that is within the capability of anyone with soldering skills. Now let's look at the advanced mode. We'll keep this at a relatively conceptual level in this webinar. For more complete and detailed information, you can consult the product manual. Some users of the Multiverse Receiver Card will actually be manufacturers, building products in multiple quantities, and the receiver card has features to help with that. And even tinkerers building just a few units may want to mount their receiver cards in an enclosure and still be able to see the indicator lights and to make changes in settings without opening the box. Here are some of the ways the receiver card can accommodate that. Connecting to pins 1, 3, 5, and 15 allows the signal quality lights to be mounted in another location, such as to the exterior of an enclosure. This requires desoldering resistors R16, R18, R19, and R20 from the circuit board. Connecting to pins 2, 4, and 6 allows the show ID indicator lights to be mounted in another location. This requires desoldering resistors R14, R15, and R21 from the circuit board. Connecting to pins 7 and 20 allows the band indicator light to be mounted in another location. Connecting to pin 14 allows a show ID selector button to be mounted in another location. Connecting to pins 8, 9, and 10 allows 3.3 volts of regulated output power for up to 200 milliamps to be sent to another location. This may save you from having to add another power supply to your project. 2 additional advanced mode features are 0 to 10 volt output and low current PWM control outputs. Users can set starting DMX addresses for them. The 0 to 10 volt feature provides one 0 to 10 volt control signal output for controlling architectural lighting devices. This is a digital to analog converter to which you assign a DMX address, and enables you to control a 0 to 10 volt analog lighting fixture. This feature can either sync or source control voltages without the need to configure sync source. The PWM feature repurposes the receive quality LEDs into PWM outputs. These are low current control outputs and are not intended to drive lighting loads. This feature provides 4 PWM outputs. The PWM output is linear in respect to the DMX control input and has a resolution of 8 bits, using 1 TMX slot per output. These 2 features are selectable only in the USB configurator program. If you have a low volume product idea or need to get a DMX receiver into a very small space, or if you want to add permanent wireless DMX control to any product you use, our Multiverse Receiver Card is a good choice for you. It only requires basic soldering skills to implement. You don't need to be a programmer or to understand circuit design and layout, or how to get custom circuit boards made. Lighting manufacturers with engineering departments and high volume requirements utilize our Multiverse module. We designed our Multiverse Receiver Card to bring that technology to everyone else in a simple way. That's the end of our lesson for today. We've covered a lot of ground in our 6 webinars on wireless DMX. Whether you're a professional or a beginner, I hope you learned some useful skills. Over the course of our 6 webinars, we covered topics like understanding frequency hopping spread spectrum radio transmission, understanding the 11 breakthrough features of multiverse technology, understanding city theatrical show IDs and why we use that system, using wireless RDM for setup and troubleshooting. We reinforced basic wireless DMX best practices several times, using specialized antennas to improve signal quality, how to perform a site survey to optimize your broadcast, setting up point-to-point and point-to-multipoint broadcasts, setting up and testing a complex 9-universe broadcast with 18 receivers, setting up and operating Multiverse Show Baby, Multiverse Node, Multiverse Transmitter, ColorFlex Multiverse Dimmers, and the Multiverse Receiver Card. I'm also proud to say that all of the innovative wireless DMX technology seen in our 6 webinars was designed, developed, and is manufactured by the skilled engineers and craftspeople of City Theatrical in our Carlsbad, New Jersey factory. Today was the 6th webinar in what was designed to be a 6-webinar series. We had so much fun with it, we've decided to do some more. We have 2 new Multiverse products launching soon, and we'll let you know when we schedule the webinars for those products. Our webinars are brief, 20 to 30 minutes, but provide a good introduction to the technology and help you get acquainted with our products. I hope you can join us for those upcoming webinars. For more information about anything you have seen, contact the City Theatrical offices in the US or UK, our website, citytheatrical.com, our Facebook page, or any of the great City Theatrical distributors around the world for more information on City Theatrical's products. We have time for some questions on the Multiverse Receiver Card or about anything else we have in our webinar series. Let's take a look. Okay. All right, here's a good one. Can I use this to dim LED tape in PWM mode? Not in the normal sense. This is going to be able to dim devices that respond to a PWM signal, but get their power elsewhere. For example, like a power supply, maybe a Meanwell power supply that takes AC in, converts it to DC, and then can be dimmed by PWM. This is where the receiver card would come in handy to control that PWM signal. Here's another one. Does this need an antenna? No, there is one on the circuit board of the radio, but if you are putting this in a metal box, you'll probably want to add an external antenna to improve the signal quality. Okay, here's another one. What do I need to perform a site survey? Yeah, so for the site survey, you're going to, for the most complete site survey, you'll need a spectrum analyzer. That's going to be something like the Y-Spy that we talked about. It's going to allow you to see everything that's in the spectrum, whether it's visible or invisible. It's very, very helpful. If you don't have one of those, you can use just a Wi-Fi analyzer, and that'll at least get you to know where Wi-Fi is in your area. Okay, let's keep going. Can I upgrade my Neo products? Unfortunately, no. There is quite a lot of firmware, hardware that would have to change, and so the cost is a little bit prohibitive. It's almost the same as just buying a new Multiverse product. So it's not something that we are going to implement. What is the transmit distance? Yeah, so that varies depending on the product, what antennas you're using. Good rule of thumb, our products with the omnidirectional antennas is 300 feet indoors and 1,500 feet outdoors. Okay, that's about all we've got for today. I want to thank everyone who joined us. This webinar and all of the webinars are going to be posted on our website. Goodbye and have a great day.